Welcome to Too Many Tabs, a podcast, no, the only podcast. We're a husband and wife duo who do research and then lore dump on each other the information that we've learned. Except for today. Not today. Today's a book club. And that's right, I know how to read. So I read a book, and now I'm going to explain it to Alex, and he's going to listen, and he's going to like it. And you guys are going to listen, and you're going to love it. So let's get started.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.
We're here. We're back. It's another
it.
episode. We did do it. We have a few announcements for this week.
Sure.
And we're really excited to get into the book club.
Uh-huh.
And I've been told this is a very good book.
That's what I said. I said it's a good book.
You said it's a very good book. You didn't want to set up too much, but you're very excited to tell me all about this one.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to speed right through these intros.
Tickets available at shows in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, and those are in mid-November. Patreon, join it. Shout-outs, not this week.
Not this week. We got too much literature to cover.
Also, no shout-outs next week because
There's
we have a secret. Shh, everybody shut the fuck up.
Oh my God, shut up.
Everybody shut the fuck up. We have a secret episode coming out. But if you're a Patreon, what you do get is an episode of the warm-up, which we literally just posted because we just did an episode
I don't
of the
remember
warm-up.
what we said.
The warm-up episode is called Contractors, Contracts, and Content.
All right, now I remember what we talked about.
So there's a lot in there where we talk about all sorts of crazy stuff, fun. It's the parasocial intro that you miss from the early episodes. Speaking of which, all of that, we have more changes and other fun things coming up soon. And to everyone who's been watching my new YouTube series, Pearlmania episodes.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.
We're working really hard on those.
Yes, it is. It is a crazy cross of how all of these have been coming together. Mm-hmm. And thank you for everybody who enjoyed the last bunch of episodes, including the one about the Emperor of the United States of America.
And his dog Bummer.
And his dog Bummer and the other one.
I saw somebody comment that they work in an animal shelter.
Yeah.
And they get to pick out names, and they're going to name one of the dogs Bummer.
Which is so awesome. It was Bummer and Lazarus.
Yeah, Bummer and Lazarus.
Lazarus was the other one. But yeah, thank you guys so much for everybody who's been just enjoying everything, liking stuff. We really enjoy all of the Patreon messages and emails and the P.O. box and all the different ways that you guys have been reaching out to us. And I'm very, very excited to get back on the road in mid-November. Hopefully, if the election goes well for everything.
Stop dooming.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been dooming a lot.
Stop dooming.
Which is why this show exists, which is why you read books and then you tell me about the books and then I react to the book as it's happening.
Yeah.
With all things, this is a completely spoiler-filled episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So for those who've never listened to a book club episode, this is
Yes.
your first one. Welcome. This is a great one to start
Great
on.
one.
Oh, my God. He doesn't even know.
I have no idea.
But listen, I read books, a lot of them. I love horror books. I'm going to explain to him the entire book. I'm going to spoil it. So if you don't want me to spoil this book, go read it, come back, listen. It's super fun to listen after you've read the book. Or just listen. You don't have to read the book. I'm doing it for you. I'm your Audible. Look at that. Also, join your local library.
Yeah.
And follow me on Instagram at Mrs. Pearlmania 500 because I do post the books on Patreon and on my Instagram to let people know what's coming up.
Yeah, you usually try to give like a 1 month notice.
I try really hard to give a 1 month
and
notice.
if you are thinking about pausing this and then reading the book and coming back, this is a 454-page book.
I'm helping.
No, I know.
If you listen to this episode, you can mark this book as read on Goodreads or Storygraph. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm giving you permission. This is your Audible. It counts as reading.
Yep, so we are about to go dump into the book right now. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get started?
No, let's have a fun week.
Okay, let's have a great week. Let's have a fun time. And for all y'all out there, make sure you join your local libraries. Make sure you stand up for against book bans, and make sure that you make sure your voice is heard on November 5th during the general election, not only at the presidential level, but please, for the love of God, at the local level, go down ballot and do research on your local candidates. They're going to have the most effect on your life. Let's get fucking started.
Books. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so today's book is called Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. And can they see the book cover?
They can see the book cover
Okay.
on the YouTube.
On the YouTube.
So-
Okay. So the story opens up with two men burying a woman. Basically, they're digging a hole for a woman. Okay.
Okay.
It's a guy named Cullen and Andrew.
Do I need to write this down?
No,
Okay.
but I mean, you might need to take some notes.
I'm gonna take
but
some
I don't
notes.
think you need to know this specifically. But
Okay.
So Cullen and Andrew are burying Andrew's daughter, and this guy Duff, a family friend of Andrew, is riding over on his horse to help them. When they're done digging the big hole and drinking a lot of corn liquor, they bring out Olivia in a wooden box. Nobody opens the box to look at her because Duff has heard whispers that her bones have cracked and sealed back together, and that her skin's peeled back with pox, and that she basically exploded and fused back together. That's what he heard. So they're not opening the box to view her.
What?
Yep.
That's like
Welcome to the book.
What? This is the opening paragraph?
So they bury her. He puts a little, cross in the area. They're sitting on the porch drinking more corn liquor, and Andrew says to Duff, "This is all her fault." And Duff's like, "What are you talking about?" And Cullen, the third guy, he hears drunk Andrew saying this, and he's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." So he's like, "Oh, hey guys, I gotta go. Talk to you later. Really sorry about your daughter. I gotta go." So he starts leaving, and Andrew starts going off, telling Duff how she's had her hooks in everything in this town, and she needs to be held accountable. And they discuss putting a bounty on her head so that outsiders will show up because they're too afraid to do it. So these outsiders need to show up and take care of it. Cullen, he's already at the stables, riding away. He doesn't want any trouble what these two are fixing to do, okay?
Okay.
And also, the story, they pan out, and we see that Olivia is buried right next to her mother, Mary. So there's two people buried.
So there's two gravestones.
And it's Andrew's wife and daughter.
Okay. And this, where are we?
Kansas.
Oh,
That's my next sentence. It literally just says Kansas.
Okay, got it. And
So-
so these guys, this is like old timey.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
This is post-Civil War, Wild
Okay.
West, Kansas.
Okay.
Okay?
Because we gotta draw a picture in people's minds.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Okay, so the bounty is on Sadie Grace's head, and it spreads like wildfire. Everybody's hearing about it. $1,000 to any man who could kill the notorious witch of Burton County, Kansas.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So Andrew and Duff, mostly Andrew, is blaming Sadie for his daughter dying.
Okay.
And that's why he's putting a bounty on her head.
Of $1,000.
$1,000.
Which is a lot of money.
A lot
back
of money.
then.
They're pooling money, I believe.
Okay. So it's like a bunch of people in the town are like, listen.
We got not all the people in the town, but a lot of people in the town.
But a few people. Quite a few. To get $1,000 bucks.
It's a lot of money.
Back then when like 15 cents would buy you like a horse.
Stupid inflation ruining 15-cent horses.
You know what? Joe Biden's America. Like to put a bounty on a witch these days in Joe Biden's America, it's crazy.
Too much. So Ned Hemingway heard all about the bounty in southern Oklahoma, which he was. Ned and his friend Moses Burke, they're traveling through Texas looking for odd jobs and work, and they're currently sitting in a saloon playing cards. And everybody was talking about this, this witch in Kansas, and so everybody's discussing it while they're playing cards. And all of a sudden, an old man who comes limping into the saloon. Saloon doors open. Old man comes limping in, and he's carrying a child over his shoulder. And he drops the child on the table in front of him and starts yelling to the room every which way. So everybody's looking at him, and he just starts screaming, "She got my boy! The witch got my boy!" Moses jumps out of his seat to run to help. And also, he puts down a winning hand of cards. So he runs to help this kid and loses the game.
Okay.
He puts his ear on the boy's chest and states the boy is not dead, but his shoulder looks dislocated. And the old guy is like, "Get away from him. What would you know anyway?" Moses grabbed the boy's arm and pushed his leg against the table and popped the shoulder back in place. The old man starts to rush at Moses, like, "Get away from my kid." And Ned swivels in front of him and introduces himself. He's like, "Hey, my name is Ned Hemingway. This is my old friend Moses. He learned medicine in the war." And the old man says, "Not on my side, he didn't." And as the old man said this, he took notice of Ned's hand hovering over the gun at his waist.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're about to have a shootout.
Yeah. And Ned
Wait,
says...
so hold on.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Because you introduced so much.
I know.
So fast.
I'm doing it.
Okay. So an old man bursts through the door with a kid and he yells, "She got him, he's dead." And the kid's not dead.
Not dead.
Just has a dislocated shoulder.
Yep.
And then the old man is like, "I'll kill you." And then he's like, he learned medicine in the war. And then he said, "Not my side." Implying, I'm guessing that the old man was a Confederate. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that Moses is African American.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to, trying to get these pictures painted.
No, I got you.
All right.
And so Ned, again, hand hovering above his gun after what old man said, he said, "I don't doubt it, sir. Moses is particular about the company he keeps." Insult, boom.
Yeah.
Moses had served under Dr. John DeGrassi, the only black surgeon out of Massachusetts and the only black doctor to serve in the Union troops. Ned felt that if Moses wanted to, he could probably find a hospital to take him on because his level of skill and training is so high.
Gotcha. So he's like the next level. He's the next generation of DeGrassi.
Yeah, exactly.
Was that too dumb? Pretty dumb. It's pretty stupid.
That was pretty dumb.
Yeah.
So Moses is examining a head wound that's on the child. And he's like looking at it and he's like, the arm's going to be fine now that the shoulders pop back in.
Yeah, which is still gross.
Yeah,
like,
gross.
Oh, God.
That's
when I hear the
old-timey.
click, I
Well,
hate that. Oh, blah.
But Moses says, but the bigger issue, he says it to Ned. He says, the bigger issue is that's not a boy. It's a girl. And Ned and Moses quickly discuss in hushed tones why this man might be lying about this child and if it's for nefarious reasons or not, right?
Yeah.
So they quickly decide they're going to interrogate him a little, ask some questions, see if this young woman is safe. So Ned offers to buy him a round of drinks, and we find out that this old man's name is Tom Goggins. And Ned asks him, "What's this all about then?" And Tom says, "It's the witch."
The witch.
Scene cut.
I'm obsessed that his name's Goggins because it's like that one actor.
Yeah,
I can
I
already
love
see him.
Goggins.
Yeah. He's so good. I always get his name wrong. It's like Walton Goggins.
Walton Goggins.
Because I always want to call him Walter, and that's not his name.
Walton.
His name's Walton.
Yeah.
He plays
Little baby.
Baby Billy.
Baby Billy.
Uncle Baby Billy.
Uncle Baby Billy.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I can picture him already in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would say he's very Ned. When
Yeah,
we get into Ned,
he has
he's gonna be
Ned feel. He has Ned feeling to it.
So the scene cuts, and we're going to go to a different person's perspective. So now we're seeing this woman, Rose Nettles.
Okay.
And she's in her home, and she's thinking about how she found her husband through a classified ad in the Philadelphia Evening Telegram.
Well,
Telegraph.
okay. How did you? Okay. You got a book that's set somewhere in Kansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yet there's still a Philadelphia
I
connection?
didn't even do it on purpose.
Okay. And
This book was suggested by a listener, and I read it, and I said, this book is great. We're doing this episode. And the Philadelphia thing, it wasn't I didn't go looking.
That's incredible, though. Just the fact that it's still there, that there's still a little Philly connection.
Always.
All right, so she used the 1800s version of Tinder, known as the classified section.
Her mother had handed her the paper with the ad circled and said, a man in Kansas is looking for a wife to assist with the household chores and farm duties. Rose's mother had recently accepted a proposal with a man named Bradshaw, and Rose would likely not be welcome into his home. So, because Rose is like 24 years old. So Rose wrote a letter back to the classified ad, and she said, my name is Rose. I'm 24, not too skinny or tall, in good health. I'm writing to enter into an arrangement. He writes back. He accepts. So she resigns from her job as a school teacher, packs her favorite books, and gets on a train to Kansas.
You know, it reminds me a lot of that. I'm 24 years old with not a penny. Remember that
Yeah.
that TikTok one that was
Yeah.
running around for a while. I think that's from like Jane Austen or one of those.
Yeah.
Just so but she gives up her school teaching job.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
these years sucked.
So she meets Joe Mullins. That's the guy, Joe Mullins.
Okay.
At the train station.
Yeah.
They go to his house. It's a small cabin that he built. It's not fancy. They start to live like a life together, right? They're strangers meeting and agreeing to be married. So it's, very weird in the beginning.
Yeah.
But Joe is very like kind and patient, and they're both very taking each other into account, like he's not being weird. About 10 weeks after she arrives, she gets a letter from her mother, and it says, "Dear Rose, the wedding was small, and I am now Mrs. Giles Bradshaw. I'm selling the old house. Mr. Bradshaw has asked after your health. ... She doesn't finish reading after this. Once she hears that her mom's selling the house, she's just like, clothes, pack it up. So she doesn't finish reading the letter. She folds it up and puts it in the book she's reading, right? And that just forgets about it.
Yeah.
For 7 years, they live as man and wife. They were never formally married by a ceremony. Joe really wanted to have children, especially boys, to help work the farm. Rose was deeply afraid of having kids. Not kids, but she's afraid of having a baby in a pregnancy.
Yeah.
She's scared of dying out in the prairie. Like, there's not medical help.
Yeah.
And she's scared of herself or the baby dying or both. Because she had a dear friend back in Philadelphia who got married and got pregnant very quickly. And she and the child died at childbirth, and the husband remarried 6 months to the day they buried her. And she was so offended that a man would just disregard a woman that way that she never wanted to feel that replaceable. So she just was like, not about it.
And then she answered a want ad for to be a wife as a job.
I'm saying wife is a job.
I'm just saying that's I mean, I understand. I get where the thought process is coming from, but at the same exact time, you entered into wife job.
Wife job.
What's your job? Wife
job.
Okay.
I mean, there's only so many jobs back then.
No, I understand that.
Wife,
I understand that.
School teacher.
I understand that, but you had a school teacher job.
So Rose and Joe do have sex, though.
Okay.
Every time they do, Rose gets up in the middle of the night and drinks a small amount of arsenic and hot tea to make sure that the pregnancy doesn't take. So every time they do it, she drinks a little bit of arsenic. If Joe is upset by the lack of pregnancy, he never made it known. Like, he didn't make it a big deal to like hurt her feelings in any way.
Okay.
One day he did come home from the general store with a flyer that had been posted there, and it said, "Wanted, homes for orphan children. A company of homeless boys and girls from the East will be arriving in Monmouth, Kansas next Saturday, ages 6 to 16 years. Come and meet your new child. Distributions will begin at 10 a.m.
Okay. I don't love that we're distributing orphans.
Orphans, come and get them.
Yeah. You want your orphan dividend, everybody?
So
That's wild. Oh, my God.
So
You know what? For as much complaining as we have about modern day and AI stealing our voices and lives, we didn't distribute orphans
Not
in
recently.
the town square. Jesus.
the orphan train, Rose read out loud, the orphan train. And Joe says, "This could be a good home for a child. It's awful quiet here. It's just the two of us. And it could be useful to have an extra set of hands on the farm when he comes of age." Right?
Okay.
So they decide they're going to do it. They arrive early at the train station, and there's a huge crowd of people. And Rose is, standing kind of in the back. Joe is up front. He's like real excited. But she's kind of standing in the back, and she's like reading her book and like just like not really paying attention. And there's a Native American man that Joe has been friendly with in the past. His name's Traveling Horse. And he's standing back there also where she is, and he's singing to himself, like kind of like the way people whistle to themselves when they're bored. So he's singing a song about this great hunter in the woods who has yellow eyes and can turn into a wolf. And Rose is like really interested. She's like, "This song is crazy." The orphan train arrives. It's empty. The conductor gets off and says, "We're really sorry. The last town back claimed every last child. There's no orphans left."
Okay. I don't like that. I mean, like, I like it. Yay, I guess. But when you're expecting your orphan train to be full, like, it's such a weird... How many orphans were in the train? They're out of orphans. What do you mean? There was a run on orphans? Like, that's so crazy.
One evening in late December, Rose was reading a book to...
Wait, we just cut from that? We just jump?
They leave.
They had to just be like, by the way, they could have gotten an orphan. They chose. They were all out.
They were all out of orphans. So she's like, "Hey, we should invite Traveling Horse over for dinner sometime. Then maybe we won't be lonely. We'll have friends come over."
Okay.
But like, other than that, scene cut. One evening in late December, Rose is reading a book to Joe, and Joe clutches his stomach and screams in pain. He kind of gathers himself, but he goes to bed early to sleep off the upset tummy. Joe dies in his sleep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
that's how it happened back then.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
An ulcer explodes and you're done.
I do get that, but being like, "Ow, my tummy. I gotta go take a little sleepy." Never wake up again is fucking wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
You wouldn't survive it.
Oh, no. The other day, my tummy hurt, and I was like, I made it everyone's problem.
Yeah. You were like, "Was it the chicken fingers?"
Okay. The reason I need to explain.
No, you don't.
I do need to explain. For those of you guys who, if you ever buy a bag of frozen chicken fingers and they're uncooked, don't believe what the air fryer instructions say. Because the air fryer instructions are always like, oh yeah, you can air fry these in like 6 minutes. It's like, yeah, you can air fry one of them in 6 minutes. What if I'm trying to cook 12 of them? You got to put them in there for a while. And then you have to keep checking on them and cutting them and making sure. Because at one point I cut into them, I'm like, this shit is raw.
Yeah.
And I'm still mad about it because it said 6 to 7 minutes at 370.
Yeah.
I bumped that thing up to 425, ran it for 19 minutes, and I still was confused.
Yeah.
I still had concerns.
Yeah. And then you got a tummy ache. But you're here.
I'm here.
So Rose wraps his body in their shower curtain and puts him outside. It's the wintertime. And covers his body with rocks to protect him from coyotes. So it's the middle of winter. She can't do anything else, so she just stores him outside because it's cold. When the ice melts and the ground softens, she digs a grave for him at the edge of the property under a sycamore tree that he liked. As the spring came, she really struggles to take care of the land. She does not know how to farm. She doesn't know what to do. She knows that Joe used to hire farmhands to bring in the harvest, but she's really scared of hiring a bunch of strange men to come to her property. She has $97 to her name that she saved from when she was a school teacher. She's been like keeping it in a jar. She doesn't know if that's enough money to start over with or what she's going to do with herself. So she's just kind of like biding her time in the house, figuring out what she's going to do with herself. And one day in early April, she's sitting on her front porch smoking a pipe because she has Joe's pipe, so she smokes it all the time. So she's smoking a pipe on her porch, and she sees 3 men and a child standing over Joe's grave right under the sycamore tree.
I don't like that.
So at the tree, old Tom Goggins, is staring at a straw doll, like a voodoo doll, that's been nailed to the tree. There's Ned and Moses with him. They notice the cross in the ground where Joe is buried, and they see this woman walking towards them. They apologize if they're trespassing, and Rose tells them, you're standing on Joe's grave. When she says it in a very deep voice, with her teeth clasped and the pipe in it while she's holding her Winchester rifle high across her chest at them. So she comes walking up, smoking with her gun drawn, and she's like, you're on Joe's grave.
Yeah, she's from Philly. Because she's from Philly. Like, what do you want? This is Rose from Philly. Okay? She probably got a face tat. Like, we haven't described her at all. Like, she probably got there with a face tat, and she's like, what? What you want?
I'm picturing her as the redhead from Abbott Elementary now.
Oh, yeah.
I got a guy.
You made her South Philly Italian.
Yeah. Well, just now. Before that, I did.
I know. But in my head, no. In my head, I'm picturing her. I'm picturing her more like Port Richmond. Yeah.
You said we're not supposed to talk about specifics.
Okay.
So Ned immediately puts his foot in his mouth by asking if Joe was her son or husband and if she's all alone, which immediately, like, she's just clicking the gun now. She's like, what do you mean am I all alone? 3 men? Like, what are you talking about? And he has this whole thing, which I'm actually going to read to you because I think it's funny to just read it. This is what he says to her. We are not bandits, nor rapists, nor murderers, and I swear we mean you no harm. Well, at least Moses and me don't mean any harm. I ain't gonna vouch for old Tom here, since we don't know him too well. If you want to shoot somebody, you might want to start with him. Hey, Tom shouts. He's Tom then, says the woman, gesturing with the barrel of the rifle. And you said that one's Moses, so who are you? My name's Ned Hemingway. I don't think you should lead in with
we're not rapists
or murderers.
Yeah, that's not...
Ned.
That's not, you don't open with
Ned.
Yeah, we're not bandits. Bandits covered a lot.
Yeah.
Bandits covered a lot. But he was like, let me go check off.
I want to be specific about this.
Ma'am, I want to cover all your fears right now. Just so you know.
Mm-hmm. So Rose decides they're chill and she invites him back in the house.
That was fast. Because
she wants to know why the fuck there's a little voodoo doll above her husband's grave. Like, what's going on there? So she sees also that the little girl that old Tom thinks is a boy, has like a cut on her head. So she brings them all back and she starts making a plaster bandage on the stove with like onions, garlic, and herbs to dress the child's wound. Rose is like, what's this little girl's name? And they're like, oh, it's a boy. Tom's like, it's a boy. And then Moses and Ned are like, yeah, we don't know what's going on with him with this. It's a boy thing. It's definitely a girl. And he says, well, I've been calling him Rabbit, because he gave me such a chase when I found him. And Rose looks at him and goes, I'm going to fix up that little girl. So she just like doesn't listen to him. And she goes and like puts a bandage on the girl's head. Now Rabbit, that's the little girl's name. Yeah. She never speaks to any of them.
Except, did she ever be like, Mom, spaghetti?
No.
No?
So Rose makes dinner for everybody, and they set a fire in the fireplace. And this is where we see an assessment of the three men through her perspective, right? Old Tom is wearing an old beaver coat that's 2 sizes too small and a hat with a big turkey feather, right? And she's like, I bet he either stole that coat off of a dead body or won it in a gambling game, whatever, because it doesn't fit. Yeah. Moses' clothes were frayed but clean and pressed. His boots were shining, and he took off his hat the moment he crossed the door, and this made Rose immediately like him. Okay. Ned is very handsome and dressed very dapper. Freshly laundered clothing, a mustard-colored Stetson hat, and a fringe vest. Okay. Okay. She asked them why there's this voodoo witch doll above Joe's grave, because she wants to know what she's up against before she goes and removes it, right? And Tom is like, no, don't do it. It was a lot of work for me to put it up there. And we find out that Tom used the straw from the leather of a dead man's shoe and some other stuff to create the doll and nailed it through the heart with an iron nail to attack the witch that they have the bounty on. By the act of doing this, it will poison her blood. And when he arrives in the town where she is, she will already be dead and he can collect the bounty because he's a witch hunter. That's old Tom's profession. Okay. Okay. And Rose is pissed. Okay. Because back in Philadelphia, she read a lot of books, and she's read books about witchcraft. Yeah. And she's like, okay, I get that. I get you did. But you do realize you just chained Joe's soul to the witch. Because of what you did, Joe is now responsible for ferrying the witch down to the River of Souls. And Tom admits that, that is some of the lore, but he doesn't know if it's true, and he didn't mean any harm by it. And Rose is like, so how much is the bounty then? And Tom's like, oh, like, it's no biggie. Like, not even that much. Like, it's not even so much. And, but when she asks about the bounty, he really downplays it. But when she says, like, well, what about the witch? What's she like? And he's like, oh, she's the worst. She kills all the cattle, eats the children, blah, 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 the worst. So Rose is like, okay, everybody, listen. Everybody get a good night's sleep because we're all leaving tomorrow. You're all leaving tomorrow. And I'm coming with you. Yeah. Right? She makes the decision. She's joining the crew. Okay. She got nothing else. She got $97 and nowhere to go.
Back then, $97 was a lot of money. I'm saying, like, you could have had like a good weekend in Vegas. But like, okay, all right. So Tom is a witch hunter?
Mm-hmm. By trade.
By trade. Yeah. And she's read some books on this. Yeah. And now okay, all right. I'm picking it up.
So Rabbit slept in Rose's bed with her. So the two ladies slept together, and the men slept in the living room. While they were all asleep, after the fire had gone out, Ned wakes up startled in the middle of the night, and he opens his eyes, and there's a man standing by the fireplace smoking a pipe. And the man looked at him, who was also confused to see him there, and then he went back to sleep. But when he woke up in the morning, he thought best not to tell anybody because, like, everybody's already being weird, and then, like, don't say you're seeing shit. So when they're leaving the house as a group, Ned steps back in the doorway and tipped his hat and thanked Joe Mullins for his hospitality. Because it was the ghost of Joe Mullins. Okay. The husband. Yeah. Also, old Tom is pissed, by the way. He doesn't like Ned or Moses, and that they latched onto this like journey, and now Rose has joined the crew, and he like completely feels out of control. Like, he's like, I don't know where these people are coming from. Why do they keep joining me? Am I gonna have to split the bounty? Okay. That child is a boy.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Old Tom is just pissed.
He's just a crazy. I picture him like wearing like also. I know that you described him as wearing like an old beaver coat and stuff like that. I picture him like whenever I hear like witchfinders stuff like that, like the fake military, but like old tattered fake military stuff is like how I picture it. But yeah, okay, I get you.
So scene cut, new perspective. Sadie Grace, the witch.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So every morning, Sadie wakes up, usually, and finds gifts on her porch. Fresh eggs, a whole chicken, a slab of hickory from the people of the town. They leave her things, right?
Oh, okay.
Thanking her for things she's done for them. Some of them are afraid of her, so they leave like little like, "Hey, please don't hurt me." Like it's just generally there's always something
they're
that
like offerings.
Yeah, offerings and gratuities like you give to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
one time, one Sunday in September, she found a crying infant swaddled in a blue blanket, and she thought, "Well, this is a little much," as a gift. So she waited till the night, and she takes the baby in a burlap sack to the dry goods store in town, because she knew that Hank Crenshaw, who owns the store, would take the baby to his wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Crenshaw has raised 6 strong boys without losing any of them to the cough or sleeping sickness. And she knew that she would take care of him. And she did. She raised the baby as her own.
Okay.
All right. Sadie thinks it's possible that she once bore a child. She awoke years ago on the edge of a river with a slash across her neck. And she walked miles to the nearest town to a doctor who stitched her up and estimated that she was between 13 and 16-year-old and probably had had a child. We learned that Sadie left that small town and like kind of like goes and lives with this family, but they realize that there's like this magic about her and they become very scared. So she leaves them and she goes and just starts walking through Kansas and finds this home that looks abandoned-ish. Like it's in good shape, but looks abandoned-ish, which happens out there all the time. People in the West die or abandon. And so she goes in the house and she finds this older couple that passed away in their bed together. So she buries them, she cleans out the house, and she's lived there ever since. So this is where Sadie lives.
Squatters' rights. Squatters' rights. Squatters' rights.
So let's go back to the crew. Okay, the crew. So we're out in the trail with Old Tom, Ned, Moses, Rose, and Rabbit.
And they're going to kill Sadie.
Yeah. So they're going to collect a bounty on Sadie. And it's mostly just Tom. Everybody else is just there to like, I forgot this part, but like Ned and Moses are heading to the town that's like right past where this is, because that's where Moses grew up.
Okay.
So they're actually just like, it's company. You know, it's safety in numbers in the Old West. So they're kind of like, yeah, we'll go see what this witch thing is about. But also like, we just are trying to get to this other town, and it's always good to go with people.
I gotcha.
Rose is just there because she's just like, what the fuck's going on?
Oh, so what else am I going to do?
What else am I doing?
Yeah.
And immediately Rose feels like she needs to keep Rabbit safe.
Yeah.
Like, so she's like, what is this little girl doing with these men? I'm going to go to keep an eye on this situation. Like, so she has these motivations, but really the only person out for Sadie is Tom.
Okay.
As they're walking, they're on the trails. They decide to leave the main trail, and they come up to a big fence in the middle of a huge prairie. And they're like, why the fuck is there a fence in the middle of a huge prairie? It just doesn't make sense. And it's a really well-built fence, but they're like, why is it in the middle of a field? There's nothing around it. It doesn't make sense. And they're all kind of nervous that there might be a landowner who's going to come out of nowhere and shoot them. So they kind of like look around for a bit, take a little wander, but the fence goes on and on each way. And they're like, we have to get past this, the direction we're going. So they decide to dismantle the fence so they can get through with their horses and everything and their mules.
Tell them I said sorry. Remember?
My God, UFO Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them I said sorry.
There is a scene. There is a show that only exists on Roku TV called UFO Cowboys.
Oh, it's the greatest show of all time.
It is one of the most insane pieces of really bad reality TV where they follow every reality TV trope. And I think we've talked about it before on here.
Maybe.
But there's a part where one of the UFO cowboys goes missing, and they see him, and he's naked next to like a turned over tree. And they can see him, but they're standing at the edge of this fence, and they're like, "We got to go get him. He's right over there." And they're like, "No, you can't cross the fence. That's native land." And the old guy jumps over the fence. And he goes, "Tell him I said I'm sorry." As they go, and then the naked guy attacks them.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing, and they're like,
aliens.
he had been abducted by aliens, and they had done something to his brain. But when he jumps over the fence, and they're like, "It's native land," he's like, "Tell him I'm sorry." It's just,
it's crazy.
It's one of the wildest things. I'm like, how did you even think of this?
Yeah. So
they yell, "Tell him I'm sorry." And
Tell
they
him
take
sorry, and they take it apart,
Yeah.
and they walk through, right? Now, far in front of them, they can, like, in the distance, they can see a forest. They see woods. They decide to keep walking. So, like, we can make camp in the forest. It'll be safer than making it out in the prairie land, right? Less people can see you, safer in the woods, right? So, like, we can definitely make it there by nightfall. The next scene, we're in the woods. and we're staring up at a hanged man. And it's Moses and Ned, because they were walking ahead of everybody else to, keep eyes out. And Moses gets a knife and he goes to cut him down. And Ned remarks that the guy might have been a thief or a murderer, because Moses is deeply shaken by this, what he's witnessing.
Yeah.
And he's like, he could have been a thief or a murderer. Like, you don't know what's going on. And Moses is like, they would have taken his boots. His boots are in great condition. So, this guy might have done this to himself, right?
That might be a suicide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Moses climbs the tree to cut the guy down. And while he's up there, the rest of the party show up. And Rose is covering Rabbit's eyes and kind of shooing her away. And old Tom is like, well, that ain't going to help him now. Like, thanks, Tom. And then he says, did Moses know that dead black fella? So, old Tom. That's not even the word he used. I changed it to make it more PC.
Okay.
More discussion of, was this a criminal from old Tom? But they all agree he probably did it to himself because of what they call prairie madness. And Moses puts the deceased gentleman on the back of his horse so they can bury him when they get out of the woods.
Gotcha.
Okay, so Moses is immediately compassionate. It's like, we got to bury this man. Blah. So while they're wrapping up the body, and like, it's a lot to get a body wrapped up. Rose is over here with trying to keep Rabbit busy. Old Tom goes just wandering out looking for stuff, right? And he comes running back, and he comes like, fellas got to see this. And Ned and Moses and old Tom walk back into the woods, deeper into the woods, the darkness of the woods with old Tom. And Moses and Ned have the wind knocked out of them when they see that the entire forest is full of dead people hanging from trees. Every branch, every tree, women, children, elderly, all walks of life, all different amounts of time. Like, some are skeletons, some are newer. Like, it's a horror.
And Jake Paul is filming just off to the corner.
He's got on a little Shrek hat or something.
Yeah, it was Toy Story.
So
yeah, Jake Paul is right there.
So old Tom blames the witch. He's like, this is the witch's doing.
Yeah.
And Ned's like, actually, that one's a skeleton, and the bounty's only been up for like a month, so the timeline doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Really. So like, this is older.
This is something
else. And so they witness that. They run back to where Rose and Rabbit are, and they're like, get everything packed up. We're moving. We're getting the hell out of here.
You don't want to sleep in Suicide Forest?
They're like, we're not sleeping in here. We're getting out of here.
Okay.
So they keep going, and they make it to the edge of the forest, and they make it out, and it's like one of their donkeys dies. Like, there was a point where like somebody, I think it might have been Moses, was like, hey, I can see the light. Like, I can see the light. We're almost out of this forest. And as soon as he says it, one of the donkeys dies. And they're like, shit, like, we lost a mule.
Yeah.
But like, so it's like, there's something really bad in these woods, right? So they get out, and they don't set up camp. And as they get out, there's another big field. And right in front of the field, another really large, well-built fence. And they're like, okay, we got to dismantle another fucking fence. And they realize in this moment that the fence was keeping people out of this forest.
Ah.
And so now they're taking apart this fence to escape whatever's in that forest. Right? Do you want to take a little break?
We should take a break right there. That's a great place to take a break. And when we come back, we'll hear more of this book, which is Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian.
I don't know if air horns are appropriate.
Why? No, we're doing. It's a Jake Paul energy.
So, scene cut.
Okay.
We're now in a county in Texas. Okay, we're leaving the crew for a minute. We're seeing this new character. His name is Charlie Gamble.
Okay.
And Charlie is a deputy, and his brother is a sheriff in Texas. And
there's a lot of characters.
I know. So
you told me not to take notes. I feel like
I said you could take notes if you wanted to.
I know, but we started with Cullen and Andrew and Duff, and then you were like Sadie Grace, and I wrote that down. And then we started jumping all over the place.
Ned, Moses, Rabbit, Rose.
Okay, and who are these guys again?
Okay, so as I'm telling you right now.
No, I know, but what was their names?
Okay, Charlie.
You
don't need to know his brother's name. It's just Charlie.
Well, then, okay, that's the thing, is every time I try to write somebody down.
Charlie is a deputy. His brother is the sheriff.
Okay.
Charlie has been in a bad mood since his wife died. And he has a really itchy and painful rash on his leg.
Okay.
This is what you need to know about Charlie right
That's
now.
all I need to know?
So he's at the sheriff's office where he works, and he's basically babysitting a horse thief that's in jail who's going to be hanged in 24 hours, right?
Okay.
So this horse thief and him are kind of talking and whatever. And he's like, you should let me out. Let me get something and they're like, dude, you're going to get hanged soon. So he and the horse thief are talking, and the horse thief notices Charlie scratching his leg. And he's like, what you got there? Some poison oak? And Charlie shows his leg to him. And the horse thief kind of really backs up into the jail cell. And he's like, that ain't poison oak. That's hellfire, boy. Your skin is burning because you got a demon burning inside of you, boy. And Charlie gets into a fight with the guy. He's like, I don't got no demon in me.
You got crotch demon.
Yeah. And he gets so mad at him, he shoots him.
What?
He shoots the horse thief.
Who's in a jail cell?
Yeah. So his brother comes in, the sheriff, and he's like, now, why did you go and do that? The townspeople are going to be so pissed. They've been looking forward to this.
Yo, what? ACAB, dude. What the fuck are we talking about right now?
So he's like, Selma Grace is having a potluck for this event, and they're going to be pissed. And so Charlie's like, they can still have the potluck even without the hanging. And it's a whole thing, right?
Okay.
So
it's pretty comical.
So the sheriff is like, listen, why don't you go do something manly and useful with yourself and go catch the man that killed your wife? And we find out that Charlie's wife was murdered by this guy, Cortez. And Charlie's like, I already called the marshals. Shouldn't I just wait? The marshals are going to handle it. Because Charlie does not want to go out and try to find his killer.
Charlie just killed a man for saying that he had crotch
a crab
rot.
in a barrel. But that's... He
No,
doesn't
but I'm
want to go
saying,
hunting someone.
I know, I understand that. But I'm saying is that's I hate Charlie.
Yeah. So basically...
Am I supposed to hate Charlie?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So sheriff is basically calls his brother a little bitch for not being able to go out and defend his wife's honor and catch a murderer. And he's like, everybody in town's talking about it, about how you're not willing to go, stand by her name, right?
And get Cortez. Cortez the Killer.
So
by Neil Young.
Basically, his brother talks bad shit, and Charlie's like, fine, and that's the end of the Charlie scene. So we're back to the crew.
Okay, real quick.
Yeah.
The song Cortez the Killer by Neil Young.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Good song.
Back to the crew.
Okay.
They're getting through that fence, like I said. They see a loose cow, a loose horse. They're like, this is weird. You don't see loose cows. Cows aren't loose. You know what I mean? Cows,
okay.
People own cows.
No, I understand.
So they keep walking, and they come up on a large ranch house. Think rich people ranch house.
Okay.
And there's smoke coming out of the chimney. So they decide that they're going to go to the house and see if the owners will let them sleep in the barn, right? They're like, maybe they'll let us sleep in the barn. Because what I've learned from this book is that you can just ask people to sleep in their house or on their floor or whatever, and it's totally cool.
You know what's crazy is when I was driving from Indianapolis to St. Louis, there was a bit there where we were in southern Indiana.
Yeah.
And like I told you, there was nothing around.
Yeah.
Except for half a mile away, you'd see a single light, which that was some ranch house. You know what I mean? That's a farmhouse out there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how if we broke down the side of the road, beyond people there on the side of the road, it might stop. Hope, maybe stop.
Truckers.
If there was a really bad storm or something like that, I'd have to walk to that farmhouse. Before cell phones, before all that shit, I was like, no. And that was the entire time Satoya was just like,
So his stories lock the door.
he was like
the door.
He was like, we're in a Nissan Armada, okay? we will wait inside this car until daylight. I was like, all right.
So there's smoke coming out of the chimney. They're gonna go ask. When they get up to the front of the house, finally, there's two men sitting on the porch drinking whiskey. They got bad vibes.
Yeah, of course.
They got bad vibes.
Yeah.
They're being real smarmy, okay? They're asking the questions is this your house? We saw one of your cows got loose. They're like, they ain't our cows. They're okay. What? They're like, owner's gone down to do some work, different place, whatever. So we find out these guys' name are McDaniel and Rigby. They introduce themselves. They're U.S. Marshals. They're gross. They're mean out of the gate. And Ed is like, are you and the ranchers that own this place friendly? And they're like the ranchers split. We don't really know them that well, but we're just watching after the place. They're down in Wichita getting supplies. And then Ned asks them hey, would it be okay if we stay in the bunkhouse? Because that's where the rancheros would be, in the bunkhouse. Yeah. The workers. Because we didn't see any, and if we can go stay there over the night,
there might be beds.
Burden for you. And the guy is like, oh, the bunkhouse was locked up by the owner. And then Rigby, looking at Rose, goes, we can't have a pretty woman sleeping in a barn. I'm very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
They're saying it all gross, like a movie gross.
yeah, movie gross.
We can't have one of you pretty ladies sitting in the barn.
Yeah, and like Rose grabs Rabbit and puts her behind her and is like, I don't.
Does Rose still have her Winchester gun? Does she still have her gun?
I think she does.
I feel like she should still have the gun.
You got to bring the Winchester.
And they're riding horses, right?
Yeah, they're riding horses and they have mules.
Yeah. Pack mules.
Pack mules. So they decide to stay in the big house. The whole thing is the guys are like, you can't stay there. You just stay in the big house. It's got like 20 fucking rooms. So McDaniel and Rigby are super off-putting and weird the entire time. Rose takes Rabbit up to a room and they basically lock themselves away because such bad vibes.
Yeah.
Right? Scene cut. We're back at the sycamore tree. Joe Mullins is standing at the sycamore tree. The ghost of Joe Mullins. He's looking at his old house and thinking about how empty it has been since Rose left. When he thinks of Rose, he gets like a buzzing in his head like bees, and he decides he should go find her to see if she needs anything. He doesn't like that she left with that odd group of guys. So he starts walking the path that they went. He can sense he's following the buzzing feeling. Like he can feel her getting closer. So he's following this path. He goes through the fields. He comes to the broken down gate. Then he gets to the forest and he enters the forest, and the buzzing is so loud in the forest, and he hears giggling too and people talking, and he meets other spirits and they can talk to each other.
Okay.
He meets a Mr. James and a little girl named Hannah. Mr. James shares an awful story that I don't want to repeat about how he ended up taking his own life, and Hannah doesn't remember how she got there, but she's a little girl. And Joe decides it's time to leave because the vibes are super heavy and he hates it in there. It's like, it makes his skin crawl, but he wanted to talk to Hannah. And after he left the forest, he thought about Rose, and the bee buzzing noise was louder than ever. So he hurried. He started walking faster because like it got so loud.
Yeah.
And he was like, Rose might be in trouble. Like I need to get closer.
He's like, my table might be ready at Outback.
Yeah, exactly. It's, oh man.
Right? Remember?
Cheesecake Factory?
Yes.
Okay,
number one.
let's go to Cheesecake
100% down. But
I want to get the corn tamale things. I love
But what I'm thinking about though is like it's the zombie from Hocus Pocus.
Yes. Very that.
It's a zombie from Hocus Pocus.
So, but he's not a zombie, he's a ghost.
No, I understand that.
He's
I
like
get
a
that because he's
spirit.
seeing the other spirits and stuff like that. Like that's crazy though of him going to the suicide forest and
Yeah.
being like, wow.
There's a lot of people.
There's a ton of people. I still want to know more about the suicide forest. I feel like that's terrifying.
Yeah. So it's really, there's a lot of details in the book, but obviously for time I can't really.
Yeah, and also you should read the book.
You should read the book.
Yeah.
Or you could, but you don't have to. So back to the crew. Ned and Moses went to put the horses and the mules in the barn, and McDaniel and Rigby are being hella off-putting to Rose and Rabbit and Old Tom.
Yep.
And
what are y'all doing with that old man over
very
there?
much that.
What are y'all
Rose
doing?
tries to like power move them and is like, let me get a glass of your whiskey, right? She's like, let me some of that whiskey, right?
Yeah.
And so she takes a shot and she asks them about this big carriage they have parked next to the barn. Because she's hoping to remind them that there's two men with guns in the barn. Because they're being so weird. She's like, let me have some whiskey. Oh, what about that carriage over there by the barn where the two men are that are going to come back with more guns?
Ned and Moses.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So while Ned and Moses are in the barn dealing with the animals, the mules, and the dead body, they're also looking
Wait. So they still brought that dead guy with them?
Yeah, Moses wants to bury him.
Okay.
So he's been on the back of a mule. And he's been moving with
That's
them.
crazy. Because like they found, like once you find, like I obviously you find one, oh, that's crazy. But then you're like, oh, this is a mass suicide. There's 100 people here.
Yeah, Moses was just very like.
I understand.
Yeah.
I get it. It just caught me off guard because
Yeah.
I would have been, I'm just telling you from my perspective.
Yeah.
I find one body, yeah, let's take care of it. I find 100, I'm leaving that one.
Yeah.
Okay? Because
I
I just broke the set.
Yeah, I gotta go.
No, that forest is like Pokemon. I gotta catch them all. And now I've taken one away. That's how you release demons. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying.
So
Also, did they rebuild the fence? I don't think they rebuilt the fence after they took it apart, right?
They didn't.
No, then they released whatever's in the forest.
Also, while they're taking care of everything, they also looking at the carriage because they're by the carriage, right?
Yeah.
And carriages are a big deal back then. Rich,
Yeah.
right? So they get close
It's the
enough.
Nissan Armada of the old days.
They get close enough and they see engraved on the wood and painted in gold lettering, Wells Fargo.
Uh-oh, no. Everybody hide.
Uh-oh.
They're going to foreclose on you.
They're going to foreclose on your mortgage.
You're going to get hit by a robo foreclosure.
No.
Allegedly.
That's not allegedly.
I looked it up. And Wells Fargo carriages are a big deal. It's like a historical accurate
no, it's
thing.
a huge thing.
Wells Fargo moved to the West, and they basically almost put United States Postal Service out of business because they were easily able to move mail quickly in their carriages. Also, money.
Yeah.
So when they saw this Wells Fargo carriage, they were like, money? What's going on? This is suspicious.
Yeah. Also, that means I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Those two guys, they're not U.S. Marshals.
Oh shit.
Them bandits. But also the Wells Fargo of that era is not the Wells Fargo of today. So the Wells Fargo of today was actually purchased by, I think it was like a Northwestern bank.
Yeah.
Way back in like the late 80s, early 90s. And that bank that purchased them took over everything, but then kept the Wells Fargo name.
Yeah.
So if you go back, there's like the Wells Fargo Man or something like that. There's like 1950s TV shows, all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Wells Fargo used to be like the brand for not only monetary security, but safety and all these different things. So if it was in a Wells Fargo wagon, you could fucking trust it. It's when that brand got bought out by these shitheads, that's the Wells Fargo we know of today.
Yeah, Wells Fargo used to mean something.
It really did, and it was like a really, really big deal because they were San Francisco based. They had all after 2008 or 2010, when Wells Fargo had all those fines and all those issues, they tried to do a big rebrand by being like, Wells Fargo, founded 1880, refounded today. And they would go through like, oh, after the Great Fire in San Francisco, after these things. And they would try to remind people of like what the old brand was. But again, it's not really that bank.
Yeah.
It's not really that bank, which is, it's a series of takeovers. Yeah. And it should never have gotten as big as it does. But now it's too big to what? Fail.
So they decide that they're going to hide the body in the carriage so that like critters don't get to it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So they're going to put the body in the carriage, close the door. And also they don't really trust the two U.S. Marshals very much. So they're like, we're just going to put this in here because we don't know what, like their vibes are bad.
Yeah.
So the whole crew,
that's like we're going to put a dead body in an armored car.
Yeah, exactly. Safe.
I know. It's it's safe. It's also crazy.
This whole thing is crazy.
Okay.
So they ate dinner with the two U.S. Marshals in the house.
Okay.
Who informed them that they're on the hunt for a murderer named Benito Cortez.
Uh-oh. That is Deputy Charlie's wife's murderer.
Yup.
Benito Cortez.
After dinner of
We're starting to stitch stories together, y'all.
After dinner of beans and bad vibes. That was my writing. They all went upstairs to go to bed. It was like a whole chapter of this dinner. And I'm like, it's just beans and bad vibes. They all go upstairs to go to bed. Ned and Moses pull Rose aside, though, in the hallway. Very soft voices. And they tell her about the stagecoach and how they don't think these two guys are actually U.S. Marshals, but I think they might be bank robbers who probably stole the carriage. And then they start discussing, like, do you think the money is hidden in this house? Because, like, Wells Fargo's carriages always had a lot of money in them.
Yep.
So they're like, what? And they're like, should we go looking for the money? And they're all like, no, let's just go to sleep and we'll figure out what to do in the morning. That night, Rose locks the fucking door, is asleep, and she wakes up in the middle of the night, and Rabbit is like snuggled up next to her on the bed, and she hears like a weird noise, and it's scratching at her door, and she walks up to the door, and she can see the doorknob twisting, and she talks to the door, and she's like, who is there? And the voice answers, Ned Hemingway, and Rose is like, I know Ned's voice, Rigby. Now get out of here before I shoot you. And Rigby's like, I know you don't have a gun in there, blah, blah. And she's like, if you don't leave, I'm going to scream and wake everyone up, including the men. And he leaves, thankfully, right?
Don't like that.
Don't like that.
Don't like that.
Next morning they wake up, Rabbit's gone. The window's open, Rabbit's gone. So Rose freaks out. She wakes up everybody except for old Tom, who I think fell asleep on a chair in the living room. And so she wakes up everybody. She's like, Rabbit's gone. We need to find her. They all get on the horses. She goes north. Ned goes the other way. Mose goes the other way, right?
Yeah.
And cover more land. So we're going to switch perspectives again.
Okay.
McDaniel and Rigby are sitting in the living room talking to each other.
Oh, okay. So we're now these evil guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Rigby's like, Rigby, I know that little girl, I swear. McDaniel's like, I like that woman, Daisy. And Rigby's like, her name is Rose. And they're just like talking about how much they like the little girl and the Lady Rose. And Rigby burps, and a tiny black toad comes out of his mouth. Rigby is like prodding McDaniels and purposely trying to make him uncomfortable with like things he's saying. And McDaniels is reflecting in his mind back on why is he even friends with Rigby? He doesn't even like him. He's really mean. And we find out that McDaniel had met Rigby out on a trail and they had started up a conversation and he really liked him. They got along well. And they were having a conversation while they were going along this trail together. And they came up across a Native American tracker who McDaniels had hired before. He knew him, named Traveling Horse.
Okay.
Traveling Horse rode with them for a short while, but pretty quickly stated he did not want to be anywhere near Rigby and told McDaniel that he had, quote, fallen in with the devil. Rigby, hearing this, knocked Traveling Horse on the back of his head with his pistol, tied him to the back of his horse, and dragged him for miles. When McDaniels finally caught up with Rigby at his campsite he had created and like the fire and everything, he was cooking dinner of horse. And when he went up to eat it, it turns out it wasn't horse. And this was the first time that McDaniels had tasted human flesh. And he went
ate
back
Traveling
for,
Horse?
Yeah. And McDaniels went back for seconds.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So Rigby's a demon.
Yeah.
Okay.
A week after that.
Because that's why he's burping up black toads.
Yep.
Okay. And they ate Traveling Horse. I want to be clear about that. He's like, do you want some horse? A Traveling Horse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picturing now, like, this reminds me very much of, like, the Vertigo comic books, like Sandman or, like, Lucifer, when they have, like, demons and stuff like that in there, where they have to fit into, like, this 1860s, 1870s vibe. So it's like, oh, I'm a demon.
Yeah, it's that.
Okay.
A week after that, Rigby barricaded a bunch of school children in a schoolhouse and set it on fire, which McDaniels assisted. And when McDaniels woke up the next day, he barely remembered it happened. It was all a fog.
Okay.
Days later, we don't know how long later, they encountered a Wells Fargo carriage and murdered those guys by making them kill each other. It was gruesome. I'm not going to write it all out. And they stole the carriage and the money. The U.S. Marshals, who were out looking for Cortez, diverted to find the Wells Fargo thieves. And they did. Rigby invented new gross ways to torture them to death. And Rigby was like, hey, but we should still find this Cortez guy. And McDaniels is like, why are we going to solve crimes? And Rigby's like, no, I just love hunting humans. And that's how they ended up at this property.
Okay. Got it. All right. Okay. That, crazy aside. That's a crazy aside.
Yeah.
It's a crazy reveal.
So
this is insane. So he's literally a demon.
Yeah.
Or actually Satan himself.
Yeah.
There's in some sort of weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. When he made the U.S. Marshals kill each other, was it using like mind control powers?
Yeah, he mind controlled them so that he had to hold his gun out. And he's like, I'm not doing this, John. I don't mean it.
Yeah.
And then like he shot his friend, but then his arm broke off backwards. Like it was bad.
Yeah.
It was gross.
It's like really, really gross. But he has magic powers.
He has magic, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because
demon magic.
It's not one of those ones where he made them like they're both there and like he breaks a pool cue in half, throws in there, only one of you can survive, like type of shit.
No,
it's not one of those.
No, he's got magic.
He got magic because he is literally a demon who's burping out black toads. Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So now we're back to like right now, and they're discussing Rose and little girl still.
Yeah.
And Rigby says, well, they all just went looking for that girl.
Wait, who said that they had recognized the girl?
Rigby.
Rigby kept saying,
demon.
Yeah, I think I know that little girl.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So he's like,
I'm going to make a proclamation now.
Go
I
ahead.
think I know something.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, because you sprinkled some things out there earlier.
I be sprinkling.
The witch said that she may have been pregnant. Mm-hmm. And this rabbit might be her kid.
Oh.
I think that might be a thing.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that out there.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I feel in this moment.
I like to honor your feelings.
Thank you.
Okay. So.
And you said men can't be detectives. Yeah?
That is a conversation for another day.
Okay.
So
we'll save it for a future warm-up.
Yeah, where I discuss why men can't be detectives.
Yeah.
You can't find your keys.
And I had to point out to you that maybe police detectives weren't designed to actually solve crimes.
Okay. So just Rigby's like, they're all out looking for that girl, and they're like, Rose went north alone. We can go get on our horses and follow her. Right?
Okay.
So bad stuff.
Yeah.
They get up and they head out to the barn after Rose.
Tom's a bad witch finder, by the way, if he doesn't notice that this dude is literally the devil.
Next line. Old Tom opens his eyes just a little after they leave because he's been asleep on the fucking chair.
Yeah.
They were just
That's
talking,
what I mean.
Yeah, well, they were just talking like they didn't know he was there.
Yeah.
So, well, like he didn't matter. So he's been faking being asleep the whole time in the chair.
All right.
And Tom clocks Rigby is possessed by a demon, and then McDaniel is clearly his familiar from the conversation they're having. He's like, that dude's a demon, and that's his familiar.
Okay. Good. I'm glad, Tom. I'm glad you decided to join the story. You fucking old psycho.
So Tom gets down on his knees, and it's so funny the way they describe it. It's like me. Like his knees are popping and cracking as he's trying to get down to his knees. And he's crawling under the couch and going, here, toady, toady, toady. He's trying to catch the little toad that he burped up. Okay. So back to Ned. Ned goes south towards the open plains, right? Kind of towards the directions of the forest.
Yeah.
He sees lots of horses and cows that have all wandered off from the ranch. Because the fence is open.
Yeah.
So, pardon me. While they're looking for Rabbit, Ned sees a man in the field, and he's got like a little pot belly and a droopy mustache, and he recognizes him immediately. It's Joe Mullins. So Ned goes up to him and says, Joe Mullins, how are you? And Ned sees him, and Joe is talking to him, but he can't hear it. He can only hear the wind and the grasshoppers, right? So he sees him talking, but no sound, right?
Okay.
So Ned says, come with me. Rose will be excited to see you. And Joe smiles and takes a step forward, but then a sunbeam comes through and Joe disappears. Right?
Okay, got it.
Cut scene. We're over at Moses. Now, he went like more east, which is closer to the bunkhouse barn area, like still pretty far back. So he's near the bunkhouse, and he opens the bunkhouse door, which was not locked, thinking maybe Rabbit had gone inside and hidden. And he was literally beaten in the face with the overwhelming smell of death and rot. And what he sees is worse than anything he witnessed in the war. Bodies torn limb from limb, faces showing that they were conscious when it happened, just viscera. Gross, right?
Okay.
So he steps back and vomits. It's like even he, someone who's seen everything, is so sick. And as he's vomiting, we hear, well, and it's McDaniel and Rigby.
Okay, because they saw that he saw.
Yeah. So Rose is north of the house, and she finds Rabbit hiding under a bush. It's a whole chapter about her finding him, but she finds her. The end.
Yeah.
Ned is heading back to the house, and as he's heading back to the house, he comes upon Moses. He sees him in the distance, who is floating above the ground, like shaking like he's in pain, while McDaniels is holding a pistol pointed at him, and Rigby is waving his arms, dancing, and his eyes are pointing in separate directions, and his smile is so wide that his mouth is actually cracking and bleeding.
Okay.
Moses is floating in the air, holding his firearm to his own head, and his other hand is grasping at his throat for air because he can't breathe.
Okay, so this is like some Darth Vader meets Stranger Things shit right here.
Yep.
I got that. And I think the guy, the demon possessed guy,
Rigby.
it's like he's like possessed by like a demon toad.
Yeah.
Oh, like that one book. Remember the demon toad?
Yeah.
With the fucking
the
Stormfront.
guy.
Yeah,
Stormfront
Stormfront. Yeah.
So,
we're all knitting them together, guys. I know that there isn't a narrative through line here, but I'll fucking make one.
So, McDaniels, who's now pointing his gun at Ned, is like, Mr. Rigby gave Moses a choice, and if he wants to take the easy way out, he can at any time. Ned, who's also pointing his gun, is internally like, I hope McDaniel's bullet doesn't hit anything vital, because I'm going to shoot this dude.
Yeah.
So he makes the thing, he's like, I'm about to get shot, but I'm going to shoot him too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Everybody, we're about to have just a shooting.
We're about to shoot out. When all of a sudden, old Tom shows up. Old Tom is like, you left a piece of yourself behind, Rigby, and he pulls out the toad in the palm of his hand and presses down on its back. And as he does, Rigby's spine cracks forward and his vertebrae pierces through his throat. Moses falls to the ground. McDaniels shifted to go towards Rigby to help him, and in that moment, Ned shoots him right in the eye and kills him.
Yeah.
Rigby is like a praying mantis and turns his head to old Tom and is like, you've made a grave mistake, old man. And old Tom is like, I don't think so, and smashes the frog in his hand, causing Rigby's rib cage to shatter. And then old Tom smashes both of his hands together, then rubs them together, and Rigby bursts into dust. And then they decide they need to burn the residue on old Tom's hands.
Yeah.
Wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
That's how you get warts.
So, all that's happening, Rose, comes back to the house with Rabbit. And they tell her all the things. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
And they're like, good news. We can take their horses, right? Good news.
Yeah, we got a stagecoach.
We got a new carriage. And Rose says like, they're like, we can take the horses. And Rose is like, and the carriage. Like, I'm tired of riding on horses.
Yeah.
I'm like, right. And Ned's like, listen, we have to paint this thing. It says fucking Wells Fargo on it.
Yeah.
And if anybody sees us, they're going to hang us as thieves and ask questions later. So they decide to paint the carriage bright red because it's literally the only paint at the house.
Okay.
And they decide they have a discussion about going to look for the money because they're like, there's definitely money hidden.
Yeah.
But they're like, we're not going to go try to find it.
There is a movie called like Paint Your Wagon or something.
Oh, yeah?
That is like a Western musical. It was like referenced in a Simpsons one. There's a few things of like musicals that people don't realize are musicals. Mm-hmm. There's a whole Simpsons episode.
Anyway.
Okay.
So they decide they're not going to look for the money, even though they know there's probably money there.
It's called Paint Your Wagon. It's a 1969 American Western musical starring Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, and Gene Seberg. But like when you see this poster and you look at it, you're like, oh, that's definitely like a crazy Western.
Whoa.
But then honestly, it's like the same way in the Simpsons episode. They treat it the way that new like modern viewers got tricked into Joker 2, like not knowing it's a musical. Because like there's this whole thing, Homer Simpson's like, I'm gonna watch this fucking Clint Eastwood Western. I'm so excited, and then she's been like, we're gonna paint this wagon. You're like, what are you doing?
I love a surprise musical.
I know you do. We should watch.
I grew up on Moulin Rouge, which
I know.
I was like, we're going to see a movie, and then it was like a musical, and I was like, I'm in for this forever.
How did you not know Moulin Rouge was a musical?
I don't even know.
It was like sold completely as a musical. They were like, hey, check this out.
I was a theater kid in high school for a certain point, and I just was like, this movie vibes, and I just didn't even think it was musical until I got there, and I was like, oh shit, I love this.
I need to, okay.
I'm going to listen to that soundtrack later tonight. So
I never want to hear about how men can't be detectives if you didn't know Moulin Rouge was a fucking musical until you were walking in the door.
Whatever. So,
we should watch Paint Your Wagon, though.
Or Moulin Rouge. So, they load up everything in the carriage. They're getting ready to go, right? Everybody is packed up. They've painted it. We're getting out of here. Bad vibes be gone, right?
Yeah.
And as they're sitting in the back of the carriage, I believe Moses is driving the carriage, so he's up front. But like Rose and Rabbit and Old Tom are definitely in the back. And they're sitting there, and all of a sudden, the dead body pops up, shoots up, sits up. And they all like startle back. It's like, the fuck is going on? And the thing they had wrapped him in, the tablecloth or whatever, pulls it down, and it's a handsome young man who introduces himself. Hi, I'm Benito Cortez.
What? But that's what? Huh? What? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
sure. How did that? Okay. Yeah.
So let's go back to Joe Mullins. Joe is walking up to the ranch house. Like I said, he's walking. He's going to find Rose.
Yeah.
And as he's walking, he can see where the bunkhouse is. There's a bunch of rancheros fighting. They're screaming at this one-eyed guy.
Oh, they're beating up. They're beating up the demon.
They're beating up McDaniel.
Yeah.
But they like.
Oh, the familiar. Okay. Yeah.
Because Rigby turned to dust. So
he's a demon. He does actually
all
have a
the
soul.
rancheros' spirits are there, and they're all trying to beat the shit out of McDaniel, the guy who got shot through the eye.
Yeah.
And that's all Joe Mullen sees. He's like walking towards the house, and he's just like, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
And then the scene cuts, and we go back to somewhere else.
I like that. That it's weirdly what's the word I'm looking for? It's weird closure.
Yeah.
Weird closure.
So now we're back to Sadie, the witch. So she knows that a bounty is put on her head, and she's a little bit miffed about it. She's pissed. Because she's helped so many people in her community, and she's just like, I'm very helpful and I don't do bad things. I don't know why these guys are doing this. This is really fucked up.
Yeah.
And she can she's very powerful, and it's really explained well in the book, and I can't really go into a lot of detail or take all day, but like she has a lot of power, and she can sense people are coming from different places to come to her. She can see it in her mind's eye, if you will. she sees the group of people coming. Our crew, she sees them. And she doesn't fear the witch hunter. She's like, he's a bumbling fool. She doesn't really get the other two guys. She's very interested in Rose. She's like, Rose has very interesting vibes. And she senses there's something else, but she can't see it. And so we learn in this moment that she can't see Rabbit.
Okay.
She sees a red blur, but she doesn't know. She's like, there's something else with them, and that's what's making her nervous.
Yeah.
So a man comes from Burton County. He goes into the saloon and introduces himself to Andrew so he can claim the reward. So this is a quick sidebar. This is in her county, in Sadie's county, at their saloon. He is this prick guy named Ubel Kane. And Ubel Kane. And he's read every book on witchcraft. He's from like New York, and he's there to kill the evil witch. He's there to collect the bounty. Now, Sarah, a woman who Sadie has helped before many times, sees this happening in the saloon, and she grabs one of her sons, Willie, and she says, hey, take this note to Miss Grace, and when you're close enough to her house to see the chimney, put this penny under your tongue. He put the note in his pocket and the penny in his pocket as well, and he runs towards her house. He has to go like pretty far. She's like, take this note to Miss Sadie to warn her about this guy coming to town. Right, because not everybody in town's against Sadie.
Yeah.
While he's walking there, he almost steps on a grasshopper, and he picks it up and he says, hey, little buddy, you gotta look out. The next kid might smush you. And he lets him go, right?
Okay. Establishing he's a good kid.
He's a good little kid. And as he's walking, he's daydreaming. He really wants a dog. He always wanted a dog.
Okay.
And he's like, it'd be so fun to have a dog. I could throw a stick right now. We could be running through the prairie, playing in mud. Like, fucking love a dog. And it's the only thing he wants in the world.
But they don't have dog trains. They only have orphan trains.
There's no dog trains. So he sits down under a tree because, again, he's a child. You think he's 7. He forgets what he's supposed to be doing. He's just like, I'm going to sit down. And he sits down playing with a pine cone, dreaming of a dog, and he falls asleep. And he wakes up, and Sadie's sitting in front of him, crisscross applesauce. And she says, you have something for me, don't you? And he hands her the note, but he's also in a panic because he knows he was supposed to, number one, get to the house and have the penny under his tongue. So he like tries to fumble the penny into his mouth, and she's like, that isn't going to, I'm more powerful than the penny trick, but okay, like calm down. And she says it nice or whatever, but like he starts crying because he's 7. And he's like, oh God, I'm going to die because the witch is going to get me. And she assures him nothing is to be worried about. He's a very good boy. And she saw what happened with the grasshopper. And so there's no need to be worried. And she really appreciates him and his mother coming to warn her. And she knows there's a man on the way there. And she says, listen, Willie, your dad is out looking for you. I suggest you go home, take the back route to avoid the main roads. And Willie listened to her and ran home. And he was in the kitchen peeling potatoes when his dad came in looking for him. Also, when he handed her the note, he gave her the penny too. He was just like, here's the penny. And so his dad comes in. He's like, I've been looking for you everywhere. And Willie was like, oh, I knew I was going to be in trouble because I was out late. And he fell asleep under a tree. And his dad pulls out from behind him a puppy he had behind his back. And the dad says, it's the craziest thing. I found him on the way here. I thought you might like him. And Willie is so excited, over the moon. And he decides that was the best penny he ever spent.
We're going to take a break because that was I can picture all that. Oh my God. Little 7-year-old boy getting a puppy.
Yep. While peeling potatoes.
Oh. What do you think he named the puppy?
I think he named it Sadie or Grace, and then she gets mad about it.
No, I think he named it Bummer the dog.
No.
When we come back, we will hear more of Red Rabbit.
Pearlmania, 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 Pearlmania.
500.net if you want to join our Patreon. But today we are not doing any shout outs. We're going to continue the story of Red Rabbit.
So, Ubel Crane, the guy, the witch hunter.
Okay.
He tries to go get her. She sets up a trap. She bashes his head and he dies. The end. So, scene cut.
Okay.
She wins.
Yeah.
Okay, the huntsman. We meet a new character. I know, right? I love a new character. This character, the huntsman, he's lived for a very long time. He's ancient. He goes by many names, all kinds of names. But we're just going to call him the huntsman. Sadie sent him a call. It was a crazy thing. She like burped up a stone and then put it in the sunlight, and then he found it in something he was eating, and it was a message. It was like a throat stone message. I don't know. It was weird.
Okay.
I'm skipping it for time. So there's this huntsman. Okay, that's all you need to know about him. And Benito introduces himself to the crew. Remember Benito?
Wait, that's okay. We're just jumping between scenes real quick. Hold on. Okay, that was
the
a lot.
huntsman exists.
Okay,
He's
the
a
huntsman
character
exists.
who's lived a long time.
Okay.
And Sadie called him using a throat stone.
Okay, so Sadie's calling the huntsman to her.
Yes.
The huntsman is not hunting Sadie.
No.
Okay. And then we cut back to the other team.
To the crew.
Okay, and they're there with
Benito in the back of the carriage who
Cortez.
just sat up. Yeah, Cortez.
Okay.
So he just sits up and they're talking to him, and he is likable. They're a little untrusting because they heard he's a murderer, right? They're like the U.S. Marshals are after you.
Yeah.
And that's suspicious. But he's actually like a really likable character. He's like a very lovely young man. And so they're kind of like, is he a murderer? He's just like a really nice guy. He talks a lot, and they're kind of just like put back a little because he just talks so much and he's so excited to like be alive. So they're just like, okay. And as he's talking to them, he shows them this cool little toad he found and put in his pocket. And old Tom grabs the toad and smushes the little fucker right in front of him. And this immediately puts Benito at odds with Tom. He immediately hates him forever.
Because he killed the
he killed his little toad buddy. Because he found it and he's like, oh, I found a little toad friend. And so he kills the toad.
Yeah.
So the crew is getting to know their little castaway. And they're just like, he's nice, and old Tom doesn't really like him because old Tom's also a racist. And so we find out he's Mexican, and he says bad things about it. It's the whole thing. So we find out according to Benito, he did not kill the deputy's wife. The deputy found him and his wife together. They were lovers.
Okay.
And the deputy caught them, and when he did, he shot her. But he's framing him because he's the sheriff and deputy.
And
so
Benito's just a lover.
He's just a lover.
Just a lover.
Who has mint-scented hair gel, right? A lover.
A lover. A lover.
But he was framed knowing that no one would believe him over the sheriff.
Yeah, of course, because the sheriff deputy versus a Mexican guy in Kansas.
Yeah.
Or Texas.
Texas is the point. Yeah, Texas is the point. So the crew is entering another town. They've come upon another town called Quivira Falls. I'm going to say Quivira Falls. And as they get there, there's a pretty big rooming house right kind of near town center. And it has a sign that says vacancies. So the owner of this rooming house is a small woman who's extremely old at 30. They're just like, she's old, like 30 years old.
Okay.
Rose, at this point, we're learning more that Rose is feeling a lot of pain in her stomach. She's starting to feel really sick a lot of the time, and she's like constantly pushing through pain basically all day. Just like a note. While this is happening, while they're getting to this rooming house, Charlie, the guy with the devil's rash, is at the same time riding towards the big ranch house they just left.
Okay.
Because he had heard that that's the direction of the U.S. Marshals.
So he's chasing Cortez.
He's still coming. He's
finally chasing Cortez. Yeah. Okay.
So just so you know, Charlie is heading towards the ranch house. These guys are checking into a rooming house in Quivira Falls. Ned is walking through town because he's going to send a telegram. And Moses and Benito, I'm going to call him Benny. Moses and Benny want to go buy a hat. Benny specifically wants to buy a hat to hide his face. So all the people in town are at their doorways staring at them. Right?
Gotcha.
It's not great. It's a weird old Western vibe to like walk through a town and everybody comes to the door to stare at you. And as they're walking, Ned and Benny somewhat notice that a lot of the people are missing limbs, like a leg or an arm or an eye. And Ned is like, the war was really hard on people. And so this isn't too out of the ordinary, but it's still noticeable. Yeah. Right?
Because it's back then, too, when they would just chop something off.
Oh, you got hurt.
Oh, you got shot in the hand. Looks like you're losing your forearm.
Yep. Okay. So Moses and Benny walk towards the hat shop. But Ned sees something out of the corner of his eye, and he's like, I'm going to go look over there, but I'll meet you guys at the store. So he wanders towards these train tracks. There's an old train station. It's real dilapidated. Clearly nobody is using this train station anymore. And so he goes and walks over there. While the guys are out, Rose is at the rooming house reading a book, right? She's reading a book to Rabbit, who's basically asleep at this point. And she opens up this book and a piece of paper slips out. And she opens it, and it's that letter from her mother years ago.
Yeah.
And in the letter, her mother writes, I just got married, blah, blah. My new husband is heading to London for work, and that she misses her so much, right? And then at the bottom of the letter, there's a P.S. As I was taking this to post, I have received news that Mr. Bradshaw had a grave accident in London. Please come home immediately. I can't bear living here without you. And Rose fucking has a panic.
Yeah.
7 to 10 years she's had this letter. Her mom hasn't reached out since.
Yeah.
But like, she could have gone home. She could have gone back to Philadelphia the whole time. Her mother needed her.
She could have gone back to Philly.
Yo. So Rose is like, why didn't she ever write again? That's crazy.
Yeah.
How long's it been? Baba, I need to write back immediately. So she's like, I'm going to write a letter and then I'm going to send a telegram too. Right?
Yeah.
This whole thing. So meanwhile, Ned's at the train tracks at where the train station used to be. And he sees, the reason he walked over there is he sees a little boy ghost and a little girl. And he goes up and he's trying to speak to them, but he can't hear them talk, just like what happened with Joe.
Yeah.
And as he's like trying to communicate with these little kids, suddenly he's surrounded by lots of little kids, some holding other little babies. So a lot of them are mostly holding Bibles. And so all these little kids come out of the bushes and are surrounding him holding Bibles.
Wait a second. Hold on. Is this the town where the orphan train stopped before it went to their town?
So he's surrounded by a sea of ghost children. A woman walks through them and she's in like her late 20s. And she motions towards the station and asks, kind of like is asking, do you know when the next train is coming? And he's like, I don't think trains come through here anymore, darling. And this makes the kids sad. He can see on their faces that when he says that trains aren't coming, this makes them sad. And Ned is like, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. There was clearly a train accident here and y'all didn't survive the train accident. That's so sad. And the lady shakes her head no, which he is like, that's weird. Like, I remember hearing a story years ago about an orphan train. And she shakes her head like, yeah. And the lady points down the tracks. And he is like, yeah, there's no trains coming. And she kind of shakes her head like he's an idiot. She's like, no, like, but they're trying to communicate and they can't. And he's like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to tell me to leave? Are we in danger here? And as she's kind of enthusiastically saying yes with her head, they all disappear.
Okay, so the lady is saying this.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So Rose is like, I gotta get this telegram out. She's writing this letter, right? She's like,
Yeah. I gotta tell my mom.
I gotta call my mom. And by the way, it's also almost dinner time, and so everybody's like, Rose, can't this wait till tomorrow? We're about to have dinner. Like, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the huntsman is meeting with Sadie.
Okay.
A little segue here, and she asks him to track this group of people who are on their way to find her. Joe is still walking towards Rose, but time and space don't make sense. So like we see Joe walking towards Rose, but like he keeps going future past, right? Like sometimes he's like right there and then suddenly he's back. Like and sometimes he's there and it's 1700s and sometimes he's there and it's like 1900s. Like time doesn't make sense where he is.
Yeah, he's doing a Dr. Adam thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we see these two things happen at the same time. Huntsman and Sadie are meeting to say we're going to track this, and Joe is still on his way, but he keeps getting lost in time.
Okay.
Poor Joe. So back to Moses and Benny, who are at the general store trying to buy a hat for Benny. And the store owner has a peg leg, but he put a little wheel on it. So he's like boot scooting around the place.
Okay.
He's got a little wheel on his peg leg. And he's offering them all these hats, but they're all like ripped up and old and shitty. And a lot of them are children's hats or women's hats. And he, like, as they're looking around, it's clear he doesn't have any like new inventory. It's all used. And Ned shows up and he's like, this place is weird, right? Like, this is a weird little place. And he notices the weird hats and the other stuff. And he looks to the corner and there's a huge pile of Bibles in the corner. And Ned is like, why do you have so many Bibles? And the guy's like, well, we're God-fearing people. Of course we have Bibles. What else would you have us read? And Ned looks at Moses and is like, we got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, because that's the little orphan kids' Bibles.
So and Ned's like, I don't have time to explain, but we need to get out of here because everything in that store is from dead children, is what he says to Moses.
Okay.
So Rose is back at the boarding house when Ned rolls up with the crew, and he's like, we ain't spending the night here.
Yeah, we're rolling.
We're not staying here. And Rose is trying to be polite because the hostess is there. By the way, her name is Elvira. That is in the book. Her name is Elvira. And they're like, no, sure, it's fine. And Ned's like, no, it's not fine. And the lady who owns the boarding house, Elvira, is like, you guys are just tired. You need to relax. You've just been on the road too long. Like, chill out. You're fine. Scene cut. We had to go back to the ranch real quick because Charlie has made it to the ranch house. And he's drinking on the porch because he found whiskey. And he's cooking soup that he made from stuff he found in the cupboard, right? So he's just like in this big house. He doesn't know why it's empty. He doesn't ask any questions.
No.
He's like not suspicious at all.
He doesn't go look at the bunkhouse that's covered in flies.
No, nothing. He's just like, oh, I'll just eat what's in here. And as he's like eating this or like preparing this soup, a dog shows up on the porch. And he's like, get out of here, dog. Get out. And he tries to shoot the dog. Dog doesn't care, walks past him. The dog walks past him and turns into a man and starts eating his soup. It's the huntsman. Charlie finds out through conversation with the huntsman, which is very short because he's not a conversational man, that he's tracking this crew and that Benny is with the crew. And so he's like, hey, can I join you? Because I, Charlie, am trying to get Cortez. And you're going that direction and you seem really big, tall, and scary. I would like for you to be by my side. And the huntsman says, listen, I can smell them. There are dead people in the bunkhouse. Bury all of them and then catch up to me, and then you can come with me. And Charlie goes to the bunkhouse, opens the door, vomits immediately, doesn't know exactly what he's supposed to bury because it's not like
people. Yeah, people. It's just parts.
And while he's considering about how he's going to take this task on, a little black toad jumps out of the doorway towards him. And he says, hello, little friend. And he picks up the toad and puts him in his shirt pocket.
Okay. Charlie's a fucking moron.
So
that's how you get possessed by a demon, man.
Rose sends a telegram to her mother. Mrs. Giles Bradshaw, 1911 Rittenhouse Square, Philadelphia, PA.
Oh, Rittenhouse Square.
Sorry.
I had such faith in her.
Sorry for the late response. Will be returning home by rail, traveling with a child. Please respond to Riddle, Kansas. Your daughter, Rose.
Wait, okay. It's been 7 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Sorry for the late response. Your mom's probably dead.
Well,
it's olden times. People just die.
Not in Rittenhouse Square.
But yeah, they
got
do.
Money.
Not that much money. This is before they made Rittenhouse Square nice.
Everyone at the rooming house is upstairs trying to pack their shit, but they can't because they're all so fucking tired, right? They're just so tired they can't even keep their eyes open. They keep like accidentally laying down and they're like, no, I gotta pack. We gotta get out of here. But they're like, what if I just took a 15-minute doze? I'm just so sleepy.
Yeah.
And Benito comes out of Old Tom's room and he's like, Old Tom's stuff is here, but he isn't. And then they open Rose and Rabbit's room and they're like, they're gone. Where are they? So everybody decides to go look for Rose and Rabbit. Not Old Tom. Yeah. So we gotta go find Rose and Rabbit. At this moment in time where they're panicking about where Rose and Rabbit are and Old Tom, Joe Mullins is walking into Quivira Falls. And he gets to Quivira Falls and he feels immediately grossed out. The vibes are terrible. The buzzing is calling him so strong, but it also can't beat how terrible the vibes are, right? Okay. Like he's like, I gotta help Rose. Like, oh, I feel it. She's in danger or something, but this place is gross. Yeah. As Joe is walking, a woman calls to him and he says hello back, and it's the lady from the train tracks.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he goes over to talk to her and he sees all the kids. And they ask him if he knows when the next train is coming. And he's like, I don't think there is one, which upsets the kids because they're expecting another train. And he asks her if, hey, have you seen my wife? And she's like, yeah, she's traveling with that crew with the other little girl over at the boarding house. And he's like, that's her. And she's like, don't worry. I'm sure they'll be joining us over here soon. And Joe's like, what? Why would they be joining us? And she's like, because they'll be passing over after the butchering. And Tom's like, the fuck are you talking about? And she explains that John Jr., Elvira's son, has been prepping all day. The only reason he's allowed to keep his arms and legs is because he's the town's butcher. His mother uses sleeping hexes on the guests, and they split the parts amongst the townspeople. Joe is like, the hell is going on? And she is like, I don't know. Apparently the people who founded this town suffered through a great blizzard and turned on each other. And now the whole town's descendants have a taste for it. Joe is like, I got to go find Rose.
Because it's a cannibal town.
It's a cannibal town.
They've been eating the orphans?
So.
No, don't eat the orphans. I don't like this.
Now the crew is fighting sleep demons.
Yeah.
And as they're trying to fight sleep, they actually find old Tom. He's in a shed behind the boarding house, hanging upside down from a hook with an empty tin bucket below him, beneath his head. Once they see him, he's like, get me the fuck down from here. And they're all having a really hard time trying to get him off this hook because they're so tired they can barely move their hands and they can't concentrate.
Yeah, it's like they took all the melatonin.
Yeah, they had all the gummies.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, this giant dude is in the doorway. This is John Jr., JJ.
Yeah.
Big dude. And he's holding a giant cleaver, the kind used for butchering buffalo.
Yeah,
right?
and he's probably wearing overalls.
Yeah,
he
for
feels
sure.
very overall-y.
Leather apron.
Yeah, leather apron,
Yeah.
overalls, no shirt, balding a little bit with stubble.
Yep,
That's how
absolutely.
I picture it, and beady eyes.
So, giant dude's in the doorway. Elvira's also there now. And she's like, this could have all been so painless and easy, but you just had to make trouble.
That's what they always say.
That's what they always say. And Ned yells at her, you killed a trainload of children. And she says, more than one trainload. We used to have a steady supply till they stopped running trains through here. Now meat is scarce.
Okay. All right. Okay.
In the next moment, a lot happens. Elvira shoots a gun. Joe Mullins walks in to this shed, and the bullet hung through his chest momentarily. Like this happens a lot in the book. Like anything that goes through Joe as a ghost, like has a moment where it
slows a little bit.
Slows or holds still. Benito he tries to stab JJ, and he does, but he gets him a little, but JJ picks him up and throws him at Tom, and Tom is hooked on the thing, so he swings into the wall and slams into the wall. Moses shoots Elvira in the head, and JJ pulled Tom down by his hair and slits him across the throat with his cleaver. Now Ned gets JJ on the floor, and Benny jumps on his back and stabs him multiple times. Now as this is all happening, townsfolk are in the doorway all of a sudden, and there's these two guys from the town, and one has no arm and the other has no leg, and the crew is basically like, drop your weapons, because they're holding guns, and they're like, drop your weapons, like we clearly took these two out, and they did. They're like, yeah, what? Oh, okay, sure. And Rose is trying to help Tom, but he's bleeding super bad, and because JJ just missed the jugular, but he's still bleeding profusely.
Yeah.
And Ned did get shot by that floating bullet. Like the way he moved, like it popped out of him and shot Ned.
Okay, but it wasn't like a vital shot.
Yeah, well, we don't know that yet.
Okay.
But he gets shot. So now a large crowd has gathered outside of the boarding house. Everybody in the town's pissed because they're packing up their carriage, right? They're like, we're getting the fuck out of Dodge. They got Tom in the carriage. They're like getting all their stuff. And the people of the town are like, you killed our butcher. We're going to starve to death now. And this little girl from the crowd, she says, leave the fat one. He's almost dead. It's a waste of meat to take him.
I'm never going to Kansas.
We find out from the townsfolks that the family's made a deal with the devil centuries back or years back, and they can't eat anything but human flesh. And so anyway, they all roll the fuck out of Dodge. They're like, we are leaving. Bye.
It's the only thing they can eat?
It's all they can eat is human flesh.
Oh my God. This is why you have to have a diversified diet.
Fiber, guys.
Have a banana.
Vegetables.
Jesus.
Now, the huntsman has just entered Quivira Falls. These people have left.
Yeah.
Joe, I think, leaves after this too. His spirit leaves. But the huntsman has now entered because, again, he's following the scent of the crew.
Yeah.
And he immediately hates the smell of the town and the vibes. He is like immediately like the dog with the fur up the back, right? Like he's like, this is not good.
Is he in dog form?
He's not in dog form. He's people form.
Okay.
He follows the smell of blood and finds the giant man and an old woman hanging from meat hooks. And their body parts, some of their body parts and organs are missing. And he nopes out of there pretty fast. He's like, that is not right. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And then he walks into the boarding house where he finds the one-legged guy with the wheel putting an arm into a meat grinder. And the guy like steps in front of it to try to hide what he was doing.
You're like, oh, mister, you don't get new around here.
He said, oh, you want to stay in a room? We got rooms for let. And before he even said we have rooms for let, the huntsman pulls back his bow and shoots the dude through his throat with an arrow and then gets the other guy too. There's two guys doing it.
Yeah.
He's like, nah. And he walks to town center where he sees they have a large church, but he could smell blood coming from the church. And he walks in and he sees that the carpets have been dyed with human blood and that there's skulls on the altar. And he walks in, looks around, picks up a skull, sniffs it, and he's like, no. He sets the place on fire. He's like, fuck this place.
Yeah.
He burns it to the ground. When he walks out of the church, all the townsfolk are out there with pitchforks and guns and screaming at him, you're burning down our church, blah, blah. And he just takes his arrows out, flinging them, taking out everybody, slitting their throats. He parts them like the Red Sea, just killing people, and then they're backing away from him.
Yeah.
Right? That's the end of that scene.
Okay. So that's incredible. I love that. And also, the other thing is that we have gone long.
Yeah.
And we've actually run out of time because we're running out of childcare right now. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do something we rarely ever do, which is we're going to make this a two-parter because we need to pause and we need to come back to record the rest of the story. Yeah. And I'm enraptured in the story. I love this story a lot.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a pause. You are not going to have to wait a full week.
No.
You are not going to have to wait a full week. We are going to drop this episode
as soon as possible.
As soon as possible for part 2. It'll be no later than Wednesday. So stay tuned for part 2 of Red Rabbit here on Too Many Tabs, also known as Mrs. Pearlmania's Book Club.
Too many frauds and too many scammers that we wish weren't real. Too many cons and too many spammers, and we're starting to feel like we've got too many tabs open. It's too many tabs. Remember to smile.